Presentation on Clauses of Insurance Contract by Prithvi, MCom Final, MPM Government First Grade College, Karkala. Before going into insurance contract, let's see the meaning of insurance. Insurance is a means of protection from financial loss. It is a form of risk management primarily used to hedge against the risk of a contingent or uncertain loss. An entity which provides insurance is known as an insurer, an insurance company, an insurance carrier, or an underwriter. A person or entity who buys insurance is known as an insured or as a policy holder. The insurance transaction involves the insured assuming a guaranteed and known relatively small loss in the form of payment to the insurer in exchange for the insurer's promise to compensate the insured in the event of a covered loss. The loss may or may not be financial, but it must be reducible to financial terms and usually involves something in which the insured has an insurable interest established by ownership, possession, or pre existing relationship. Insurance contract. An insurance contract is a document representing the agreement between an insurance company and the insured. Central to any insurance contract is the insuring agreement, which specifies the risk covered, the limits of the policy, and the term of the policy. Here, the insurance contract may be defined as an agreement between two parties whereby one party is called an insurer and the other is called insured. The insurer, which is the insurance company, undertakes in exchange of fixed premium to pay the insurance fixed amount of money on the happening of a certain event. Let's see the clauses of insurance contract. The old form of policy is even used today to make the standard policy suitable for the different types of contracts. Suitable conditions are added to the policy. So, use conditions are inserted in the policy in the form of clauses. The clauses took the standard form with special meanings. They may be about hull, cargo, and freight. Let's see one by one. Hull clauses. These clauses are mainly framed to the insurance on the vessels and they incorporated in hull policies. The clauses may be about losses resulting from a collision, stranding, general average, etc. Here, all risk policies may be issued or certain risk may be excluded from the policy by inserting suitable clauses. Inland or port risk clauses may be incorporated in fee policy to determine the extent of the loss. These clauses are known as institute time clauses. Next is cargo clauses. These clauses are used in the insurance of goods and are incorporated in cargo policies. Use clauses describe the nature, extent, and scope of the insurance and define comprehensive conditions and restrictions. The additional marine perils against which cover may be sought or which are excluded from the policies are inserted through special clauses. The terms and conditions of cargo insurance are specially incorporated in the policies. With average or with particular average, exposure during transit, etc. are the important clauses of cargo insurance. Here, the underwriting of cargo risk depends upon the nature of goods, the susceptibility of the goods, intention of the insurer and insured, and willingness of the assured to pay the extra premium. This clause is also known as institute cargo clause. Next is freight clauses. The clauses are framed in connection with the loss of a freight due to maritime perils which may be insured for a period or a voyage. A person who paid the freight in advance and the person who will receive the freight on completion of the voyage are interested in covering the risk. The general average, particular average, etc. are used in the freight clauses. The clauses are known as institute freight clauses. Here, the clauses to be incorporated in the policy are taken from the Lloyd's Association. There are various clauses which are suitably inserted according to the nature and type of policies. Hull, cargo, and freight policies have different standard provisions. In case of hull insurance, the clauses provide that if the insured vessel at the expiration of the policy is at sea or a port of refuge. Here, generally, the ship may be covered until arrival at the port of destination. In case of cargo policies with average, free of particular average, or all risks are generally used. There are standard clauses that are invariably used in marine insurance. Here, firstly, policies are constructed in the plain, ordinary, and popular sense, and later on specific clauses are added to them according to the terms and conditions of the contract. So, clauses attached to the policy would override the printed wording in the policy. Next, marine clauses. The usual clauses which are or may be incorporated in the marine policy are assignment clause, lost or not lost clause, at and from clause, warehouse to warehouse clause, deviation, touch and stay clause, inch merit clause, running down clause, sue and labor clause, reinsurance clause, memorandum clause, continuation clause. So let's get an idea regarding them. First one is assignment clause. This clause makes it clear that the marine policy is freely assignable unless this is expressly prohibited. The policy can be assigned to anyone who may acquire an insurable interest in the subject matter as soon as the assured parts with this interest. So, cargo policy is freely assignable and no notice thereof is essential to be given to the underwriter. But in case of hull insurance, dry policy cannot be assigned freely and the consent of underwriter is essential because the degree of risk of the subject matter is materially changed when the management and ownership of the vessel are changed. So, since owner of cargo has no control over the cargo in transit, the blank endorsement may be permitted. But in hull insurance, a specific endorsement of an assignment is essential. It is interesting to note that marine policy can be assigned even after it takes place, but the assignee does not get a better title than the assigner. However, where the assured has parted with his interest in the subject matter insured and has not, before or at the time so doing, expressly or impliedly agreed to assign the policy and subsequent assignment of the policy is inoperative. Next is lost or not lost clause. The clause is as to be insured, lost or not lost. The policy was taken in good faith. The meaning of the clause is that the insurer insures the subject matter irrespective of the fact that it has already been lost or not lost before the issue of the policy. Here it is taken in such a case where a merchant receives information from the shipment of his cargo very late after the sailing of the steamer, and therefore when he submits the risk to the underwriter and affects insurance, it was not known whether the subject matter to be insured was lost or was not lost. So to provide full protection for shipment, the words lost or not lost are inserted. It means that the insurer undertakes to indemnify the insured whether the subject matter before the date of issue of the policy was already lost or not. In this case, it is assumed that the assured and the underwriters are ignorant about the safety or otherwise of the subject matter. The policy terminates if it is proved later on that one of the two parties was aware of the subject matter at the time of loss. The introduction of this clause has a retrospective effect to provide for any loss which has occurred during the period from the date of shipment to the date of issue of policy. This clause was most prevalent in olden times when the media of communication were not developed so much. Now the clause has lost much of its importance. Next is at and from clause. This clause is applicable in voyage policies insuring hull and freight. It determines the time when the actual risk commences. As soon as the ship will arrive at the port, the risk will commence. It means that the policy covers the subject matters while it is lying at the port of departure and from the time the ship sails when the policy contains from only instead of at and from. Here, from means the risk commences from the time of departure of the ship and not previous to that. In the case of cargo policy, this clause is amended as the risk may commence boom the time the cargo is loaded onto the vessel. In OH policy, if the ship is not at that place when the contract is concluded, the risk commences as soon as the ship arrives there in good safety. If the place of departure is specified by the policy and the ship sails from another place than the specified one, the risk does not attach. Next is warehouse to warehouse clause. Here underwriters are responsible for the risk commencing from the time of loading to the time of unloading the cargo, but in certain cases the risks are beyond these two limits, that is departing and destination. So to cover the inland risk from the original place of departure to the port of sailing and from the port of discharge to the place of final destination are insured under warehouse to warehouse clause. Under this policy, the risk commences from the specified place and continues to the specified place of destination named in the policy. Thus, the risk of land, craft transport, and transshipment are also covered under a single marine insurance policy. Sometimes, time limit is also inserted in the policy, and the extra cost is required from the insured to cover the remaining OH. But where goods are willfully detained, the underwriter shall cease his liability. Deviation, touch, and clauses. The ship should not deviate from the course of the voyage described in the policy or where the course is not a specifically designated one from the customary course. Any departure from the specified course or a customary course amounts to the deviation. So, a deviation is different from the change of OH. In a latter case, the destination agreed upon is changed, while in the former case, the destination is the same as agreed, but the course to it is deviated from. In the change of OH, the underwriter's liability comes to an end from the time the intention or decision to change the OH is taken, but in deviation, the mere intention to the deviation is not material. There should be an actual deviation to avoid the policy. Once deviation has taken place, the risk ceases to attach to the rest of the voyage, even though the loss has occurred after the vessel has reverted to the proper course. Where the ship deviates without lawful excuse, the underwriters are relieved of the liability as from the time of deviation. The fact that deviation did not increase the risk or that the ship regained her route before any loss occurred would not amount to non-deviation. This clause applies only to voyage policies. In time policies, this clause does not apply. So, the deviation is excused under certain circumstances, but it should be noted that the ship must resume her course and prosecute the OH with reasonable dispatch. Deviation or delay is excused in the following cases where authorized by any special term in the policy. The special term must be incorporated in the policy. Underwriters are usually willing to extend the protection of the policies after charging an additional premium. Next is where deviation is caused by circumstances beyond the control of the master and his employer. Third one, where deviation or delay is necessary to comply with an express or implied warranty. And the fourth one is the deviation or delay is necessary for the safety of the ship or subject matter insured. Fifth one is to save human life or aid a ship in distress where human life may be in danger. For obtaining medical or surgical aid, deviation or delay is agreed. Delay is required. Where deviation is caused by the barratter's conduct of the master or crew, if the barratry is one of the perils insured against. Let's see. Let's see. Touch and stay clause. It accords liberty to the vessel to touch and stay at any port or place whatsoever. What's over. In the absence of the clause, the liberty to touch and stay at any port of place whatsoever does not authorize thy ship to depart from the course of her voyage from the port of departure to the port of destination. Where several ports are specified, the ship may touch or stay at all or any of them. In the absence of any usage or sufficient cause of the contrary, uh, the ship must proceed to the designated ports. So here the following wordings are incorporated in the standard policy. And it shall be lawful for the said ship, etc., in the voyage to proceed and sail to and touch and stay at any ports or places whatsoever without prejudice to this insurance. It means that the vessel in the course of the voyage must touch and stay at such ports and in such order as are mentioned in the policy, or if no course is mentioned in the policy, the ports must be in the ordinary course of the voyage. Inch-Mary clause. The clause protects the ship owners against losses to be included in claims by the assured. This clause is taken from an illustration of a steamer called Inch-Mary. The donkey pump of the steamer was damaged due to silt. The claim was covered under the and all other perils, losses and misfortunes clause. Here the court decided that due to negligence such losses were outside the scope of the insurance, arrest should not be covered by it. So now to provide indemnity for the insured for damage to the hull or machinery resulting from the negligence of the master or crew as well as from an explosion or latent defects, a clause was introduced into hull policies which are commonly known as Inch-Murray clause. This clause is also incorporated in cargo policies. Running down clause. This clause is also called a collision clause and is included in hull policies. It provides that the underwriter agrees to take upon the liability of the owner of the ship for damage done by his vessel to another vessel on collision to the extent of three-fourths of such liability. The underwriter will be responsible only when this clause is added to the policy. Here the assured himself has to bear one-fourth of the loss so that he may exercise greater care in the navigation of the vessel. Here the full protection can be given by deleting the words three-fourths from the clause. In case the ship sinks in a collision and is held liable for the damage done to the other vessel, the underwriter may have to pay a total loss and a heavy claim under the RDC, means running down clauses. The amount of damage extends to include damage done to other ships, her cargo, and compensation for loss of employment in consequence of the collision. Here, next is sue and labor clause. This clause reads as follows: and in case of loss of misfortunate, it shall be lawful to the assured, their factors, servants, and assigns to sue, labor, and travel for in and about the defense, safeguards, and recovery of the said goods and the merchandises and ship, etc., or part thereof, without prejudice to this insurance, to the charges whereof we, the assurers, will contribute each one according to the rate and quantity of his sum herein assured. Thus, it is the duty of the assured and his agents to act in such a way that they are uninsured and to take such measures as may be reasonable for averting or minimizing loss or damage. This clause requires underwriters to pay any expenses properly incurred by the assured or his agents in preventing or minimizing loss or damage to the subject matter. The reasonable expenditure is payable even though it may be also to the total loss. Some of the essential features of fuel and labor charges are as follows. The expenses must be incurred for the benefit of the subject matter insured. Here, if occurred for the common benefit, they may become a part of the general average, which is not recoverable under this clause. They must be reasonable. And third one is they may be incurred by the assured, his factors, his servants or assigns. The clause excludes salvage charges. And the fourth feature is the expenses are incurred to avert or minimize a loss from a peril covered by the policy. Expenses incurred to avert or diminish any loss not covered by the policy are not recoverable under this clause. Next is reinsurance clause. The reinsurance clause, being reinsurance and subject to the same clauses and conditions as the original policy and to players may be paid thereon, is generally added to the original policies. The reinsurer is liable only for claims for which the original underwriter is liable. Here, if the reassured has paid a claim for which he is not legally liable under his policy, the reinsurer is under no obligation to reimburse him. The cost incurred by the original insurer is contesting liability under the original policy need not be paid by the reinsurer. The reinsurance policy is closely linked with the original insurance, and any alteration in the original policy must be agreed with the reinsurer. And next is memorandum clause. The memorandum clause reads as under: corn, fish, salt, fruit, flour and seed are warranted free from average unless general or the ship is stranded. Sugar, tobacco are warranted free from average, and all other goods, also the ship and freight, were are warranted free from average. This clause is meant to provide a minimum limit to the underwriter's liability regarding claims for a particular average by exempting him from such claims. Next is continuation clause. This clause refers that the vessel shall continue to be covered even after completion of the voyage under the policy at a pro rata premium to her port of destination, provided previous notice was not given. Next is institute cargo clauses. These clauses are used to cover various types of general merchandise involving transit by sea. The risk clauses, general average clause and collision clause are included in these clauses. These clauses are institute cargo clauses A, B and C. Thank you.